A new report details former President Trump's efforts to get the Department of Justice to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Meanwhile, we are following new details in the investigation into the January 6th attack. The House Select Committee probing the insurrection has issued new subpoenas, and lawyers for former President Trump are telling his old aides not to cooperate. Nikole Killion reports.
They are some of the highest-ranking Trump administration officials targeted by the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. A letter reviewed by CBS News from former President Trump's legal team instructs those who were subpoenaed not to cooperate in producing documents or testimony. It cites executive and other privileges and argues President Trump is prepared to defend these fundamental privileges in court.
The current occupant of the White House gets to make the decision on executive privilege. So I would remind the former president that he is not the current president, and so he doesn't have that right.
Democratic Vice Chair Pete Aguilar is a member of the Select Committee and says criminal referrals are possible.
Do you see that as the next step?
It's definitely an option that the committee has. We will look at whatever mechanisms we have, including the criminal piece.
The developments follow the release of a Senate Judiciary report Thursday that found Mr. Trump went to great lengths to pressure the Department of Justice to undo the 2020 election.
We were barely a half step away from a full-blown constitutional crisis.
The Democratic-led investigation revealed then-President Trump demanded DOJ reject the election results at least 9 times between the election and January 6th. One White House attorney likened his efforts to a murder-suicide pact when he contemplated ousting his acting attorney general during an Oval Office meeting January 3rd.
The president rejected it. The president did the right thing.
So Nikole Killion is joining us now to talk a little bit more about this. So you mentioned in your piece that former President Trump and his legal team are citing executive privilege in response to the Select Committee investigation. But we also heard in your piece, hey, he's not in office anymore. So on what grounds does he have to cite executive privilege?
Well, in this letter that was reviewed by CBS News, his legal team argues that, much of what's been requested by the committee in terms of some of his former aides is, in their view, protected, whether that's presidential communications, the deliberative process, attorney-client privilege. So that's kind of what they mean when they say executive and other privileges. That being said, you heard from Congressman Aguilar in our piece who said, look, as you mentioned, he's not in office anymore, so the rules don't apply. I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to probably be a very challenging battle because the Biden administration ultimately has the final say in terms of reviewing these documents and kind of having a say in what is released. And even if the former president objects to some of that, the administration could potentially overrule him. So this is likely to get pretty ugly as this drags on.
You say in your story that former President Trump's behavior was likened to a murder-suicide pact. What was going on inside the department?
Yeah, so in the view of many officials, chaos. I mean, look, in the run-up to January 6th, just 3 days before, there was this contentious Oval Office meeting where the former president was contemplating ousting his acting attorney general. And keep in mind, you remember former Attorney General William Barr. He left, about a month prior, so there was this acting attorney general in place. Former president was considering ousting him and replacing him with a loyalist who would kind of pursue more of these fraudulent election claims. And so in this meeting, he was warned by officials from DOJ that they would resign en masse, including a member of his own White House counsel's office, Pat Cipollone, who said he would likely resign as well. And he, according to one official familiar with that meeting, kind of likened, again, the president's efforts to this murder-suicide pact. Ultimately, the former president relented. He didn't oust that acting attorney general, but certainly, when you hear senators like Senator Durbin weigh in, he feels that, we were on the verge of a constitutional crisis.
So they're not waiting, though, the Select Committee, that is, waiting to see if aides of the former president want to cooperate or not. They issued subpoenas earlier to organizers of the Stop the Steal rally. What are they hoping to find out?
So this is a group of 3 individuals who, in essence, were part of the permit process, applied for permits for this rally. But what isn't clear is that when they applied for these permits, there wasn't this clear connection between Stop the Steal and the rally. And so, the committee kind of wants to dig deeper into that and kind of dig deeper into what these organizers actually knew when they put together this event. That's on top of subpoenas that they've already issued to other organizers who were affiliated with the event at the Ellipse. And this is part of a broad swath of subpoenas that the committee has issued in recent weeks.
And now that deadline has expired for the former president's allies to turn over documents. So what happens next? And if they don't comply, could that affect the House investigation, Nikole?
Yeah, so this is for those 4 Trump officials that we mentioned in the piece, namely folks like former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. So they were required to turn over these documents to the committee by yesterday. The committee has also asked that they appear for depositions next week. And so if they don't comply, the chairman of the committee, Betty Thompson, has warned that there could be criminal referrals, which also could be a very lengthy process to pursue. And so in talking to committee members about whether they're concerned this could impede their investigation, what one member, Congressman Aguilar, told me is that he's not too concerned about that. He says that they have been able to get cooperation from other officials, both from the former administration and outside, or from government, I should say within government and outside of government. But, that being said, I think they feel that their work is going to continue. They realize that they're up against a timetable here in terms of trying to be expeditious in their actions. And so the congressman told me, they hope to put out some type of report in next year, and that even this non-compliance probably won't stop their course of action.
I want to ask you about another topic before we let you go. The vote along party lines in the Senate. They voted to increase the debt ceiling by $480 billion. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer delivered quite an animated speech yesterday, rivaling British parliamentarians, I think, and it prompted a bit of a reaction from Republicans, but as well as from Senator Joe Manchin. I want to play some sound.
Leader McConnell and Senate Republicans insisted they wanted a solution to the debt ceiling, but said Democrats must raise it alone by going through a drawn-out, convoluted, and risky reconciliation process. That was simply unacceptable to my caucus.
Okay, so maybe not British parliamentarian level, and you don't get the chorus from the background there, hooting and hollering. But what can you tell us about the ongoing tensions on Capitol Hill? Manchin was not happy with what he had to say.
Yeah, you could see him kind of rubbing his face there, which was an image that kind of went viral online. But look, in terms of this particular moment, basically, it drew the ire of several senators, including, as you mentioned, Senator Manchin, some Republicans, because they felt like, look, this was a very contentious battle in terms of the debt limit fight. And, while neither side is really, happy with the deal, they kind of took it to prevent the economy from, going off of a cliff. And that being said, they felt that Majority Leader Schumer's comments, that he was kind of rubbing it in the face of Republicans. And, when they're the ones who kind of offered this compromise and, we're trying to go along to get along. So they just felt like it was kind of in poor taste that maybe he shouldn't have gone there, since it was Republicans who did step up to try to offer this compromise and help out. And then, the leader turns around and kind of puts them on blast. So didn't go over so well with a number of senators. But look, it does kind of highlight some of the tensions that we have seen on the Hill. For instance, between Senator Manchin and Senator Sanders, they kind of had a beef this week over the reconciliation package. Senator Sanders accusing Senator Manchin of kind of, and Senator Sinema of holding up this reconciliation package and, holding it hostage and trying to sabotage it. Senator Manchin has argued, look, I don't want us to turn into an entitlement society. We need to pare this down. So granted, these are kind of fundamental differences in terms of their opinion, but it does raise questions about, can they kind of bridge those gaps and bridge those divides to reach agreement? Because as you know, we're facing more deadlines as far as this, reconciliation package is concerned. They want to get it done by the end of the month. So they are going to have to try to strike some some common ground here. And same thing with the debt limit. You know, this is just a temporary fix. They're going to have to deal with this towards the end of the year, along with other, you know, spending battles. So, you know, stay tuned.
Indeed, we are staying tuned because we will be right back where we started in December.
Pointing fingers.
I know, exactly right. So, yes, we know we will have a very, very busy holiday season. Nikole Killion for us on the Hill as always. Thank you, Nikole.
You bet.